With unprecedented salary cap implications, this offseason, we've been seeing some of the most chaotic free agency signings in NHL history. The Calgary Flames stealing half the Canucks losing half of the Canucks, the Vegas Golden Knights are playing NHL 21 as they turned off their salary cap, Torrey Krug replacing Pietrangelo, Taylor Hall to the Sabres. Time will tell if these signings were worth it, but history has shown time and time again that splurging millions of dollars on a star doesn't always equal success. And in some cases, making a huge splash in free agency can financially ruin a team for years. In today's video, we're going to go over free agency signings that devastated a team for years. And before we start off, I'm going to be giving away a copy of NHL 21 to one of you guys. And all you have to do is, of course, like this video and comment down below your team's worst free agency signing in franchise history. And press subscribe for some more awesome hockey content. Let's get straight into this video. We will start with Ilya Kovalchuk. And people tend to forget, but back in 2010, Kovalchuk was a hot commodity. In fact, he was a prolific 50-goal scorer who was in the same ranks with other stars such as Ovechkin and Steven Stamkos. So when it was announced that he was entering free agency in 2010, it was war. As it is extremely rare to have a 50-goal scorer, unless you're going to give up half your team in a trade or you lucked out in the draft. So during the 2010 offseason, I'm sure you can imagine that Kovalchuk was headlining every single rumor. And considering that Kovalchuk didn't sign until September, it was non-stop the entire summer. Nearly 5 months of Kovalchuk is gonna sign with this team today. So finally, on September 3rd, 2010, the New Jersey Devils signed Kovalchuk, and I'm not even joking, for 15 years, $100 million. And keep in mind, with inflation, this is approximately $120 million. Which was an insane number in term at the time. And back in 2010, the New Jersey Devils were still a great team, with players like Zach Parise, Patrick Elias, Travis Zajac, and the Enterprise Rent-A-Car guy. And so committing that much money to a single player was a massive risk. A risk that ultimately meant they were going to have to part ways with some of their stars. Which would happen as Zach Parise, who was their leading scorer, left in 2012 to the Wild. So, with their newly signed superstar, what happened? Well, the next season would be pretty horrendous, as they went from a competitive team to missing the playoffs. But do not fray, because in the 2011-2012 season, with Ilya Kovalchuk leading the charge, the New Jersey Devils would find themselves in the Stanley Cup Finals. A place they would not have ended up with without Kovalchuk. However, the LA Kings proved to be too much to handle, and they would steal the cup away from the Devils. But regardless, it was still great progression from the organization. 2013 NHL lockout. Players do not know what to do. So instead of sitting around, most players decide to pack their bags and play in Europe in the KHL. Which of course includes Ilya Kovalchuk, who left back to Russia. And well, I think he liked going back home a lot, because after returning to the Devils to play the remainder of the season, Kovalchuk would drop an absolute bombshell. Only 3 years into his 15-year contract, Kovalchuk would announce his retirement from the NHL, so he can go back to playing in Russia. And this of course was a major issue. The Devils built their entire team and future around Kovalchuk. So just to lose him, that was going to change everything. Now luckily, they didn't have to pay the remainder of his ridiculous contract, but they did get a $250,000 cap recapture fee for 12 years, on top of losing major parts of their team due to cap issues. And so the Devils would go from a championship caliber team, a team that just made it to the Stanley Cup Finals, to being basically forced into an instant rebuild. A rebuild that has lasted for the better part of the last decade, all because of one horrendous free agency signing that would have a long-term detrimental effect to the franchise. Next, with the Minnesota Wild. And funny enough, this signing, or signings, was a direct outcome of the Kovalchuk disaster. Because back in 2012, the Zach Parise camp would announce he was entering free agency. And again, some of you guys may have forgotten, but back then, Zach Parise was a top winger in the NHL. With an extremely impressive 94 points in 2009, and just like Kovalchuk, Parise was a hot commodity. And that's not all, folks. Ryan Suter would also drop a bombshell that he too would be entering free agency. And considering that Suter was arguably a top 5 defenseman and Parise was a top 5 winger, whoever signed these players would be receiving a superstar. Wait, what? They signed him. They signed them both? $200 million? Back in 2012, shocking the entire hockey universe, the Minnesota Wild would sign not one, but two. An absolute gutsy and high-risk move. As both Zach Parise and Ryan Suter, and again, I'm not even joking, both signed for 13 years. 13. $98 million apiece. So a combined $196 million, that equates to roughly $220 million today. But hey, you just acquired 2 additional franchise players. And you didn't have to give up a single asset. So wait, how possibly could this devastate the team? Well, even though the Minnesota Wild have only missed the playoffs once since signing the 2, because they had to utilize so much of their cap space, the Minnesota Wild have been stuck in a constant state of mediocrity. Because before signing Parise and Suter, the Wild didn't have any bona fide superstars. And Parise and Suter alone couldn't carry the weight of the entire Wild team. But because the Wild locked them down for 13 years, it's nearly impossible for them to be a bottom team, so they can never have high draft picks. And because they didn't have good enough surrounding players, they've never been able to be a championship caliber team. And so these 2 signings basically committed the Minnesota Wild into being an average team for their entire 13-year contract, which really just emphasizes the importance of depth in a supporting cast. Next, we have John Tavares. Drafted first overall in 2009, Tavares was supposed to be the next generational player in the NHL. And although he never elevated to the same level as a Crosby or an Ovechkin, Tavares has been a star his entire career. So when there's rumblings that he may enter free agency, being that he was a Toronto boy, it would of course headline every rumor heading up until July 1st. Or shockingly, the Toronto Maple Leafs would announce that they signed Tavares to a 7-year, $77 million deal. And before I get a bunch of hate from Leafs fans, no, I'm not saying Tavares devastated your team. He's been an absolute stud in Toronto, as he would even eclipse his career high in goals and points last season. But it was the cap management stand from Tavares alongside of the salary cap not rising. So what happened? How could signing a superstar devastate the Leafs? Well, Marner's contract happened, Matthews' contract happened, William Nylander's contract happened. And even though they deserved every dime of their contracts, these 3 players, including Tavares, equate to over $40 million in cap space. A devastating number that is going to hurt the depth of any team. And that's the issue. In a game that depends on 4 versatile lines, having that much money tied into 4 players is going to hurt. And it's proved to be exactly that. As the Leafs have so much star power, but they haven't been able to make it out of the first round. So unless some Leafs prospects can enter the lineup and perform on entry-level deals, or perhaps the salary cap goes up, the Leafs are going to be in serious cap issues for the foreseeable future. Now, with that being said, I can completely see Marner and Matthews carry the team to success. But having really good depth throughout your lineup is a way safer bet than hoping your stars can outscore the other team on any given night. But anyways guys, what is your team's worst free agency signing in franchise history? Comment it down below for your chance of winning a copy of NHL 21. But anyways guys, I hope all you guys are doing well. Make sure to press subscribe for some more awesome content. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you guys later.